I would like to start with you, Polo. You've come a long way in building an organization of the future in Alithea, IDF. Could you tell us a little bit about that organization and then just break down ESG for us and why you think it's relevant for our region?
Great. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for having me. So we launched a fund called Alithea IDF, which is a Mauritius-based private equity fund in 2019, but had been working at it since 2014. We launched it as two women-owned and led private equity firms. The firm that I lead is called IDF Capital, and we are based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we came into partnership with another firm called Alithea Capital, which is also women-owned and led, a private equity firm in Lagos, Nigeria. So AIF is really a joint venture between two African women-owned and led private equity firms in two significantly large regions of the African continent. And we were quite intentional about coming together as African women, understanding the challenges of access to capital for women-owned and led businesses across the continent, in sub-Saharan Africa in particular, of course. And the important for that charge to be led by women, because we understand the issues, we know what the opportunity is actually. We see the opportunity, wearing our lens as investors or as private equity players, but we also understand the opportunity as African women, understanding what products and services are needed on the continent that can be provided through entrepreneurial ventures, and how, as wearing an investor hat, you can actually drive commercial return on the one hand by making investments in those businesses, but importantly, on the other hand, really having impact on the societies and the communities that we live in, so that we can see an upliftment of the quality of life for all.
Yeah. And it's definitely an organization of the future, like I said, but I know you've spent many years building it. And what we're actually going to talk about in this session are some of the other aspects of ESG that are not usually talked about, social and governance. And I just want to just press you a little bit more, Polo. Where are we currently as far as, women equality and really uplifting women and bringing them into the mainstream and then participating in the growth and development story of Africa is concerned? Where are we currently?
Very far from where we need to be. Just statistics that I'm sure everybody in the audience knows. Women make up 52% of the world population, and you can superimpose that number in every country in the world. Women make up more than 50% of small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. The IFC, in a report of 2016, said that less than 2% of capital flows go towards women-owned and led businesses on the African continent. The African Development Bank said that the funding gap for women-owned businesses is $42 billion, and this is a statistic they mentioned around 2019. And McKinsey, in a report they released in 2021, said that if companies were to adopt inclusivity and diversity, which you can read to mean also the inclusion of women, you can unlock $12 trillion into the global economy by 2025. So those numbers tell a very alarming story that I often use the analogy of a football match. We are playing a football match and we only have half of the team on the football, in the football game, or on the field rather, and yet we expect to win the match. And that really says that as a people, as the world, as the globe, we are not likely to win the match of economic freedom, of economic prosperity for all, if only half of the players are on the football playing field.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask Antonio about how Angola is doing, in this football match, and how balanced the Angolan team is. But let's first of all just talk about Angola, the country. I mean, as a commodity, dependent economy, currently, as we talk about sustainability and ESG, you're definitely trying your best to bring in growth and development. And as a commodity dependent country, I mean, where do you strike the balance to ensure that your policies and as well as the demands of investors, frankly, reflect ESG practices?
Well, Thank you, David, for the question. Actually, it's a very pertinent one, since Angola, as an economy which was, it's still very dependent on oil as a commodity, had found itself in the challenge of diversification. And as a priority of our government since the last 5 years, as part of the diversification program, we had to ensure that we had in place policies and practices that do reinforce first the kind of ESG standards at the level of corporate governance, at the level of how business is performed in the country, that played a key role in changing the perceptions about Angola. First of all, we would like to highlight the fact that we had to tackle corruption. Corruption was very within our society, and the president himself, as the head of the state, played a key role in establishing very high standards, and as a result, we are seeing that Angola has been perceived as someone that not only mentioned that wanted to tackle corruption, but did came up with concrete examples of how we dealt with it in a very short period of time as compared to how long we exist since independence. That represents a very important step forward. Besides that, then we had to also improve the level of confidence that markets have in Angola as a FDI destination. So we had to make institutions like ours, like Apex, to play an instrumental role in sharing that kind of assurances and confidence to the market through concrete examples of how we are able to deliver. And across the relationship, institutional relationship that ends up being important to have in place with all different stakeholders from government and also from the private sector, we manage, again, I need to highlight in a short period of time to showcase that it's possible to when everyone adopts such measures as a must, to make important changes in how we are perceived and how we are able to increase productivity, and we are able to deliver and to participate as part of a world that's more and more aware about the principles and the moral and ethical things that we need to all to look at for a common future that we want to make it much brighter than what we are experiencing today. So there's a lot of about what we are being able to do, but it's also important for us to scale up. And as Gilles mentioned, from the renewable energy perspective, there's a lot of things that can be done in the continent, because mainly the natural resources are there, but when you look at the supply chains, at the value chains, there's not yet capacity, internal capacity in the countries to transform those. So taking in account that Angola is not a landlocked country, so we have access to sea. So there is there's still need for investment in infrastructure, but there's already signs that because of the stability, because of the proximity to markets like DRC, like Zambia, that do need to export those raw materials, but they also need to transform them. And because of the demographics, because being a majority young population, so there's need for employment creation. And again, employment creation is also one of the elements of the standards of ESGs that we want to have in place. So there are a set of conditions that when optimized and taken to a higher level of compromise, that we think that it's possible definitely to participate in this effort, and attraction of investment is definitely something that we need and we look forward to achieve.
And I know you spend a lot of your time promoting your diversification policy, talk of farming, talk of tourism. Do you think investing in these other sectors is going to do what oil and diamonds did not do in a very long time, lifting millions of Angolans out of poverty?
Yes, definitely, because we have a chance to look at what was achieved elsewhere, and there are already some good examples within the continent. There's a small island like Mauritius has been doing well. Kenya, up north, countries like Egypt, Morocco, they're also performing very well. South Africa, our neighbor, is also doing very well. So we should look at those examples and see how we, in an innovative way, we could also reflect those same good experiences into our environment. So we just need to speed up. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, so it's already been reinvented. We just need to adopt in a fast and effective way those practices that could help Angola to grow. And plus, we have also huge potential in sectors like tourism, since Angola geographically is located in a region where we have 4 different climates, microclimates. So that helps us to be able to deliver to all kinds of interests into specific offering within the hospitality sector, within the tourism. The delta of Okavango as one of the biggest strongholds in terms of natural preservation could also be a stronghold for our economy, and also to those that are around the world willing to preserve environment and to see a place where everything could be done from scratch the right way. So this is also important to highlight, that Africa as an all and Angola as a country has the opportunity to start doing things, implementing policies the right way, because there's a lot to do across all sectors.
Polo, you just raised $100 million a couple of months ago, and you're going to be raising more money. It's one thing to raise this money, but can actually the women partake of this money? Are they pitching? Are you seeing more women coming in and pitching to get this money to build businesses? And what more can really be done to ensure that we have more women within the ecosystem of investment?
Sure. So we have actually been investing in women, David, since 2008, before the world woke up to the idea of what we now term gender lens investing. So we have known as African women for a very long time that African women are capable entrepreneurs and they are worth investing in as an asset class. We have proven this for 14 years now. What we've simply done with the raising of $100 million fund was on the back of the track record we had gained in investing in women in South Africa. We were then able to use that track record to then go to investors and say, it is time for us to expand beyond the South African borders. So there's absolutely no question around whether there is a sufficient number of women-owned businesses that are seeking capital. We had our investor meeting just 2 weeks ago, and we were already sitting with a pipeline of more than $250 million, and we've already almost committed about 50 million of that 100 million. So we are thinking, where are we going to get the rest of the $250 million to feed this pipeline? So our problem is access to capital, and not we do not have a shortage of opportunities for by women-owned businesses. And I think what is important as well, the statistics that I referred to earlier, more than 50% of SMMEs on the African continent are women. African women are serious entrepreneurs. It is just that the world has built a narrative around us that says that we are looking for aid, we are looking for handouts. And African women are not looking for handouts. We are very industrious and very resilient, and we've proven this over time. When you look, if you take the issue of a shortage of access to capital, and you take it, for instance, to the tech space, which is an area that we also invest in, I was quite shocked to read a report that said out of the $55 billion that were raised in tech startups last year, 2021, less than 1% went to women-owned tech founders. And it's quite shocking in this day and age when we see a lot of women in tech as well rising, that regardless of the number of women increasing, the quantum of the checks that are being written for women-owned tech startups is also very, very small. So what is pleasing, however, on the other hand, is that more and more fund managers are starting to adopt the gender lens investment strategy, which means that investors are starting to embed gender lens investing as part of their investment process. And this is very important. We actually developed the first ever gender lens investing toolkit in 2017, SAIF, together with DGGF, to demonstrate to investment professionals how you can, on a day-to-day basis, infuse gender as part of your investment decision-making process, where we look at gender not only from an ownership perspective or the leadership team perspective, but gender in the supply chain of the business that you're going to invest in gender in the distribution value chain that you're going to use when you distribute your goods and services, but importantly, gender in terms of the diversity of your customer base. Because for us, it is also important to be intentional that the products that we develop and the services that we provide improve the lives of women and girls across the continent. So more and more fund managers and investors are adopting gender lens investing, and I think it's a positive development. We are, of course, yet to see the results. And maybe as a last point, the importance of being very intentional about investing with gender in mind is that it actually makes business sense. Mm-hmm. It has been proven that with gender diverse teams or diverse teams across the board, even cultural diversity, it actually contributes significantly to your bottom line. So this has been scientifically proven. So it's no longer a moral imperative, it's actually a business imperative today to have a gender lens, or rather a diverse portfolio base or diverse team of investors as you look at investment opportunities.
And it's really noble work you're doing. Thanks. Antonio, you spoke briefly about governance and quickly tackling the issue of corruption, but when you talk about governance in Angola, we definitely have to talk about the past. And as journalists, we feel okay to ask this question, which we did not think we would be asking, a few months back. Is Angola moved on? Are we going to have a war again in Angola, in Southern Africa, somewhere else? We can ask this question now. Has Angola moved on? And can you confidently tell the world why, you think these projects that you're pitching, long-term projects like we have already had, the logistics, transportation corridors, these are long-term projects and need one ingredient of stability. What can you tell the world about the outlook of stability in Angola?
Starting from the fact that you're asking if Angola has moved on, just looking at the audience and seeing that we are at the full, that means that there is interest on Angola, which is very positive, meaning that the increasing interest must be followed by the consistency of all actions that we say that we had started 5 years ago with a long-term objective, with the master plan, as said by Secretary Borges, meaning that we really sticking to what we believe is the only way to look at Angola, not from a present perspective, but what we can achieve for future generations. And it's important for us to not only to come to places like we are here, but it's important to deliver on a constant basis, putting in place policies that are getting broader and broader understood, because it's also very important that what the government oversees as a solution for our problems is understood from every single Angolan, and that it sees itself as an active participant in achieving the kind of development that Angola as a country has a recognized potential. Of course, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's important that we all understand that we need to commit and we need to scale up, as I mentioned at the beginning, because policies on one hand do create the framework that is needed, but attraction of investment and effective participation of the general public and the general population into the positiveness that investment could bring for development is also a key key ingredient in this plan that we have. And the role of best practices, the role of consistency of policies, the attraction of investment, the kind of assurances that stability is in Angola. Since 2002, 2002, we saw that Angola is a stable country. So the kind of issues that we are facing are more related to economic pitfalls that were related to the fact that we were very and still dependent on oil. Now, oil is very high. It doesn't mean that we are going to sleep over and relax, as it was mentioned before, but we will take that to boost even more our commitment to stick to our plans and really develop the country and playing a more important role as a hub in the region, but playing that role not only considering the positive aspects that are directly to Angola, but also to help other regional economies to grow, and Africa as a whole to play a much important role in international trade and also in international arena.
Antonio da Silva, Chairman, Angola's Private Investment and Export Promotions Agency. Polo, Leteka, Managing Partner and Co-founder of Alithea IDF. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the audience and all those online.